Since stingless bees are naturally found in the forests and majorly on trees or underground, nesting them will become advantageous to the farmer because you can easily manage them, and in return you can harvest your honey and be able to monitor once you have domesticated them. You should be able to identify the entrance of the bee species on the tree. That will tell you that is where the colony is located. So you cut at least 2 meters or 4 meters away from the entrance on both sides so that you are able to get the colony off from the tree. Once you get the section of the colony off the tree, you now carry it to your home. Once you get to your home, you split the wood that you've got from the tree, and inside it is where you'll find the different sections of a colony, because a colony is divided into the brood section, the honey section, and the pollen section. Now, for demonstration purposes, once you get your colony to your home and you have split it, assuming this was your natural colony, where there is a lot of thin layer of propolis, this is what we refer to as the evolic room, and this is an indication that the brood is located here. And from your entrance, which is here, you can see the brood is put further away from the entrance. So when transferring, you should consider that. So what we do while nesting, you carefully locate your brood, which is here. Then you try and separate it from any attachments, either of honey pillars or pollen pillars. So after separating it from any attachment, you gently place your arms inside up to where the brood has reached the end. Then you gently lift it inside and get to the base of where the brood has reached. And try to separate it from any honey or pollen attachments. And now with this, you have the entire brood section, and it is what we refer to as the heart of the colony. And the reason as to why we refer to it as the heart of the colony is because this is where the queen is, this is where all the nurse bees are, and this is where some of the workers also are. So once you have this heart of the colony, first you identify your hive where you want to transfer it, locate where is the entrance of my hive, and since we had seen here that the brood was far away from the entrance, you also come and place it further away from the entrance in your new hive. Once you have transferred the queen together with the brood, you are good to go to start your colony. What you can do, if you are able to transfer some of the bees here, either by knocking, you knock some of the bees inside, or alternatively you can carry away the mother colony away from here. Then you put this one here. The foragers which had gone to forage will in return come into the new hive, and just like that they are going to begin their other new colony. Once there is a queen, there are nurse bees and foragers, the colony is set to go. The nurse bees, from their name nurse bees, are bees that are specialized in taking care of the brood. The nurse bees are responsible for regulating the temperature in the brood, for checking for any pests, any diseases that are associated with the brood, for checking on the survival of the brood. So basically the nurse bees take care of the brood, and as we know, brood are the future generation of a colony because they are the young ones of the bees, which will in return grow into workers. The major role of the queen is to lay eggs and ensure the continuity of the colony. Once the pupae hatches, the queen lays more eggs, the nurse bee takes care of the brood, and therefore your colony is able to stabilize itself and grow into a strong colony. Anyone who has set up a meliponiary, been able to nest, and now you have the colony for stingless bee species, you need to master the act of managing these bees. So It is simple but very important, because without managing the stingless bee species, it will result into loss in terms of losing the bees and also losing their products in return. So once you have set up your meliponiary, the first and most basic thing is the cleanliness of your meliponiary. Now, for stingless bees which are smaller in size, you can get spiders constructing cobwebs right in front of the entrance or on the sides, and the cobwebs in return attract these bees. They capture them, they get stuck there and they die. So the major thing about managing the stingless bees, you may ensure frequent cleanliness of your meliponiary by dusting the hives, removing the cobwebs, and ensuring that their flight path is clear. Number 2, the common factor of just ensuring that your colony is doing fine by naked eyes is by touching the entrance of your colony. Once you get the entrance is succulent and more of fresh, you are sure that the colony is doing fine. Once you notice that it is dry, then there is something for alarm. You need to check what is really happening with your colony. Without planting the flowers, they won't be attracted to go outside the hive and start foraging. We advise farmers who keep stingless bees to plant flowers around their meliponiary so that they can attract these bees to go and forage. You can attach feeders 50 meters away from your meliponiary, and what you put in these feeders is either sugar solution during the dry season, or after harvesting your honey from the honey pots, you can now take the residue and put in the feeders, and the bees can go and forage on them. The normal African honeybee, which comes to rob the stingless bee honey. Besides robbing the stingless bee honey, they can also attack, and in return, the stingless bee will either abscond or die. So with this, farmers should ensure that there are no spaces in their hives where the honeybee can pass through, because the only opening should only be the entrance where there are guard bees. With guard bees, the honeybee can't get through. We also have birds of the air which come to eat the bees, but with your shade in place and no obstructions of either trees or anything that will attract the birds, that will prevent the birds from eating your bees. With proper management and good crop, stingless bee honey is stored in pots, unlike honeybee which is stored in combs. So in terms of harvesting stingless bee honey, the major thing, the hives are compacted into sections where the brood is in one section, the honey pots are put in a different section. So what a farmer should do, frequent inspection is the only way you will know once the colony is ready for harvesting, because if you frequently inspect your hives after every 2 weeks or a month, you are able to note that the honey chambers are full, and therefore it calls for harvesting. What you do, you pick the honey chamber, which is full of honey pots. You prick the pots using a clean fork or a toothpick or a clean stick. After pricking the pots, you bend your honey compartment and the honey will flow out of the pots. Alternatively, one can take all the pots and squeeze them, and the honey will get off of the pots into a clean jar. So an important aspect when harvesting your honey, you should be able to identify the honey pots and the pollen pots. Honey pots appear clearer than the pollen pots, and the honey pots are also stored separately from the pollen pot. Once you mix pollen and honey, it will lead to fermentation, and your honey will start getting bitter or fermenting, tasting like beer. What I should remind the farmer is that where you place your honey should be very dry. Because of the high moisture content of stingless bee honey, the honey easily ferments. So mixing it with water will be also a risk factor of speeding up the fermentation rate. So what the farmer should do, your honey should be dripping inside a dry container to ensure that your honey is okay and it has retained its quality.
When it comes to the quality of the honey, many studies we have already conducted here in Ethiopia have proven that the quality of the honey also differs from one species to another one. In the same species, when you keep them in different type of habitat, also you have a different quality of honey. Indigenous tree species are the main requirement to have a better growth of the colony, better survival rate of the colony, and a high honey production. In a country like Kenya, some few communities like the Nandi, the Luya in Kakamega, they still keep that knowledge and try to transmit them to the next generation during the different traditional ritual they do, like when they do some circumcision, they also, in that opportunity, also teach about these bees. In Central and West Africa, there are some species where the whole colony in their nest are used like to chase evil spirit in the compound. Once you put your nest in the compound, they have some other things they add to it, and they say my compound is protected against any evil person or spirit which will enter in my compound. Stingless bee honey has high value medicine. Its marketing price is high. In some countries, even 5 times the price of the honeybee honey. Here in Kenya, actually, a kilo of honeybee honey, processed honey, is sold at 1,000 Kenya shilling. But we have been able to bring down the stingless bee honey to be sold at 3,000 Kenya shilling. So there's a lot of interest around the stingless bees because of first the quality of the honey and the amount of income they can provide to the farmer.